How's it going, guys? It's Scripted Bud here for today. In this video, I'm going to do a ICO coverage for Kakushin. It's basically a decentralized innovation, intellectual property driven ecosystem that's going to use the blockchain to create funding protocols and mechanisms for people who want to generate crowdfunding in the very similar to like the ICO market. Now, pretty much what it comes down to is an incubation project that allows anybody to say, you know what, I want to start a project, I want to crowdfund. How do I go about doing that? Now, I have talked about various projects in this channel relating to incubation platforms, and we've already seen some of those already on the exchanges. But what Kakushin is trying to do here is something a little different than what the other projects are doing, because it's basically going to be like a one-stop shop for everything. The team primarily is located in Australia, and they do have a base in India as well. So for those of you guys who are into that in that space, this is something you may want to take a look at, as obviously the crypto market is super fragmented and global. Kakushin is obviously poised to position itself in that area of the world. So stick with me next couple of minutes and I'll talk a little bit about this, about what Kakushin it does and what are some of the key highlights of this ICO. Now, full disclaimer again, make sure you do your own homework and do your own research. This video is only to provide coverage and technology. It is not an endorsement to buy or sell this token. It's very important that you read the white paper, visit Telegram group, ask questions, go onto the website to make a more informed decision before you begin to do any sort of action. All right, here we go. So the Kakushin ecosystem is, like I said before, they're based in Australia/India. There's connections on India as well. And what they're trying to do is decentralize an entire ecosystem that we have predominantly faced a couple of issues with. And that's specifically dealing with crowdfunding and also ICO incubation. It's basically going to be a complete comprehensive ecosystem that's not just going to be about crowdfunding. It's going to start looking at intellectual property rights. So for example, movies, radio, or any sort of digital product that has some sort of copyright infringement can be looked at as an ecosystem in there. And we've already seen that on that part of the world, specifically like in China or India or any of the emerging countries, we do have areas where there is a lot of issues with intellectual property. And so what Kakushin is trying to use is leverage the blockchain technology to be able to track that as a means to figure out where that's going to go. Also, it's going to look at patient data, patents. It's going to look at copyrights, trademarks, and ownership of IDEA. So again, there's going to be a lot of different applications in the actual intellectual property rights area. Also, they're going to be working with blockchains and protocols to create viable products that include three main systems. The first one is going to be the incubation portal. It's going to allow people to come in and pretty much develop startups in various parts of the world. And we've already seen this before in other countries, specifically like in China, where they go ahead and begin to incubate startup companies that predominantly don't have access to funding. And here in the US, we do have venture capital and in Silicon Valley that kind of creates that incubation for a lot of the startups. And so I think there's a lot of projects out there that need funding, that need some sort of incubation, and Kakushin is trying to kind of work with that to try to figure out how to bridge that gap between capital and also startups. It also is going to have a marketplace where people can exchange and look at different ideas, and then obviously have an exchange where you can begin to convert currencies as well. All right, let's take a look at the team real quick. So the team is pretty vast. There's actually a lot of people here from different parts of the globe. The co-founder is Sachin Bhargava. He is a core member, and he was a member of a number of big ICOs, and he has a lot of experience in project management. So again, you do have to have a lot of connections to the ICO space, because right now it's changing in many different countries, and there's a lot of regulations obviously they're coming down the line, and being able to position yourself as a legitimate place where you can begin to kind of give out good services to these companies is very important. Amit Dubey is a co-founder. He's a CMO. He's also part of that part. We got a co-founder, which Marco De Corso. He's a CPA, looking at cross-border transactions. So again, I'm looking at more of the financial accounting side. A couple advisors we have on here is Andreas Fink, who is a Swiss telecom giant, co-founder of CEO, including DataCell. He's also we have Vladimir Neval, which is an advisor for Webcoin, co-founder and marketing director of ICO Bay Group. Daryl Emanuel, who has experience in the financial sector, .com. We have another advisor, Kunal Kareni, who is ex-head of business development at CoinEx. We have another advisor for Sydney, who is an ICO expert, ICO Bench, with 10 years experience in digital marketing SEO. Also another advisor and consultant, Navin Kapoor. And then looking on the other end here, as you guys can see, we have quite a bit of people who are associated with specific countries. So here we have Gaurav Menhar. He is the innovation lead at Australia and New Zealand. And then Yash Mehra, sorry, I can't pronounce these names, senior management and foreign commonwealths in the UK. And it's also the capital investment strategy in India. And so, I mean, basically looking at this, guys, is that we do have quite a bit of people who are interested here in trying to kind of get this project on board. And it looks like we've got some experience from each of these individuals. So we'll have to see a little bit more. Click on them. Make sure when you go to the website, you click on their LinkedIn to kind of get a little bit more background information. All right, so what is the actual problem statement? The problem statement that we get right here is that most of the time, a lot of the ICOs, as you guys already know, are fraudulent, and there's a lot of crowdfunding projects that basically have no accountability. The second thing is that there's also multiple exchanges, and there's a lot of fragmentation in the space. And this actually occurs a lot with some of the smaller countries because they don't have the really infrastructure to kind of build that up. About 80% of the projects don't keep their promises or are fraudulent. So again, you know, in terms of the ICO space, it's very important to do your own research because, as Kakushin has mentioned, there is a lot of fraud in that area. Also, a lot of the crowdfunders are not offered any guarantees, and often they can lose their money. And there's also the other part with Kickstarter funds, right? So for example, if you're not going to go and raise through the traditional crowdfunding, how can you go about using crowdfunding as a mechanism using Kickstarter? And so for those guys who are not aware, Kickstarter is another way to raise money for projects. And usually it requires a lot of documentation. You need to know where you need to actually have to be at the country where you're actually launching this. And usually taxes and fees kind of are part of the platform that kind of eat up into the project. And in most cases, the actual project manager, whoever's launching that project, has to end up putting more money than what they actually get out. So again, Kakushin is trying to solve this issue of like saying, okay, we have a lot of ICOs right now that want to raise money. There's actually multiple different companies that kind of assist them in doing that. But most of the time, these companies kind of do their own thing. And they actually have to do everything from the marketing to making sure that incubation space is done correctly. And so what Kakushin is trying to do is set up infrastructure for areas where that has not been developed. And so I'm going to guess right now that, for example, India or any of the emerging countries that are coming out right now may need potential services for doing that. And here in the West, in Europe, or maybe in the US, we do have a lot of companies right now that are doing that. But again, the regulatory space is changing. And so again, it's kind of important to understand that the segment that the industry they're targeting, it's really about people who have this idea that's not fraudulent, obviously, and that is most likely going to have something that could be sold on the open market. And so I think this is actually pretty important. Now, the ecosystem itself is going to be based off a couple of areas. The first one is going to be product creators. So anybody who creates any sort of digital product, or it could be like a regular product, I guess. Also have innovation backers. You can basically reward the people who put the money in through some sort of mechanism where they get value out of putting their work in. There's also going to be advisors and moderators, which are going to be put into the ecosystem that can begin to advise and consult these projects that are attempting to get launched up. And then there's going to be financing changes on how this kind of changes the entire VC funding. So prior to the 2010s, you know, venture capital was really dominated the way, you know, companies get funded. So in Silicon Valley, for example, is you have to pretty much get through these different seed rounds in order to get funded. When the crypto market really started off with Ethereum, then what we saw was a decentralization of crowdfunding. And that really changed the nature of how projects get funded. And so what Kakushin is trying to do is basically create an ecosystem around this idea of not having access to capital, right? And so that's something that I think we've seen as a recurring theme over time. Obviously, crowd sales are now falling under regulatory scrutiny, and there's obviously a lot of cases where they may have been fraudulent. So Kakushin is trying to be like that middleman just to kind of filter out some of these projects and assist with regulators on how to go about doing this. Now, as an example of this, here is a community manager, here's a community user. They're going to be matched up with an engine on the blockchain using some sort of technology, obviously, that we have to go into. Then the ICO platform is going to be there where the innovators, whoever creates that project, gets put into the platform. The engine's going to match them up, and then you can use hedge funds or small individual investors that can come in and begin to get access to these projects. But again, it's going to be all computerized. It's going to be flushed out. There's going to be people in the middle just kind of filter around these projects. Now, the innovators could eventually get some of these tokens or whatever it is that they get and the funds, and they can exchange it, and then they could use it for an e-commerce platform or eventually to, buy some tokens. So again, they're going to have an exchange system in addition to that as the tokens are going back and forth on that. Let's talk about the Kakushin exchange real quick. So very similar to a lot of the other projects that are doing something similar. Pretty much what you do is you're going to have a trading platform that you're going to allow cash flow to come in and allow the conversion of funds and currency. So as, let's say, Bitcoin, Ethereum is coming in, they're going to be able to exchange it. You're also going to have the KKN, which is the Kakushin coin, and it's going to provide liquidity ecosystem. Now, again, there's a lot of different products out there right now that kind of do something very similar. Obviously, it remains to be seen on whether Kakushin can actually separate themselves out of the competition and how this would actually be beneficial to everybody. The other one they're going to have is the Incubation and Nursing Center, where you're going to have ICO consultation, ICO management. You can learn and invest in ICOs in different forms. And so again, it's not just an area where people are going to be exchanging digitally, but you're going to have people in there looking at the different projects that are coming up in different countries. All right, on the marketplace, there's going to be a place where they're going to be able to synergize all the different ecosystems together. And so there's going to be a store where you can buy and sell products on there. You can also do leases, and you can also provide affiliate programs or whatnot to allow people to kind of purchase and sell the ICOs or whatever it is that they're trying to sell online. All right, now looking at the roadmap real quick, and again, all this is on the website, and I highly encourage you guys to check it out real quick. They actually started about 2015. They had the concept 16. Right now, they are starting with the pre-sale and the ICO crowd sale. And then they're going to begin the exchange listing along with the ecosystem development and along with the marketplace. And by 2020, they should already have the platform launching ready to go. So it's a little bit of a long roadmap, but I think, they're really thinking about how to kind of go about creating this correctly so that everything kind of works out. So right now we're going to be about here somewhere around 18, Q4 18, when you'll be launching the exchanges. All right, guys. Well, that finished up my review for Kakushin. I mean, check it out. I think when you're looking at ICO spaces and you're looking at the development of the regulatory framework for that, I think the companies that are going to have that infrastructure built is very important, because right now the entire ICO market is extremely fragmented. I mean, we got countries who have banned it outright, where other countries are regulating it, other countries who are pretty much saying go ahead and do whatever you want. We also have countries right now that are barely starting their crypto influence, I would say. And places like India, for example, that have historically had issues with currency problems, may provide a incubation area for people who come in and say, you know what, I want to build the next, software program. I want to build the next this and this. And I think Kakushin has a great idea. Now, whether they can execute it or not, that's going to be up to the team and making sure that they follow through their promises. Obviously, we'll be following up with them after the ICO is over, but check them out and see where exactly they're at their stages. And I think you might find it interesting as far as these ideas of ICO platforms and incubations. All right, guys, CryptoBud out. Have a great day.